Good evening. Welcome to Bhagavad Gita. Welcome to all of you. So nice to be in your association this evening and continue our study of the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, the perfection of renunciation. Okay, let's hope this is going on YouTube. So let us begin, okay? We'll start as we normally do with the invocation mantras, and then we'll begin our discussion on Gita. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shilakaya Chakshuro Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovisam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Dati Swapadantikam Mano Vishnu Padaya Vishnu Pristaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Vedanto Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vastatya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Hari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are beginning
May I know,
from what's that?
if I may know, you're following your inspiration each and every time, right?
Yes,
Because I don't think any one time you repeat your melody or your harmony. It's amazing.
yes, you're absolutely right. I sometimes I go to kirtan and don't even know what I'm going to sing, and usually you should prepare. And I just sit there, and then the inspiration comes, and some melody just happens. When I during COVID, I was doing every morning from 7:30 to 8 when I lived in Puerto Rico during the COVID. And I was just doing it for pure self purification and to put purification out into the ether. And it was the same way. And last I counted, I don't know, it's probably more, but last I counted, I had 120 different melodies. All the Hare Krishna melody, 120 different melodies. So that was like a new melody every third day. Like I'm sure I repeated it as time went on, but and with um, no real preparation. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that in this particular way. It's so much more interesting when you do it that way because you see how super soul works rather than how you work. We have a tendency to be very intellectually grounded, my intellect, but it's much more intriguing when we let allow super soul to participate. So yes, the inspiration comes and it's by super soul's grace. So
Beautiful.
do you happen to know what verse we left off with, Eleanor?
Yes, we read 12.
Okay, so we're on 13.
No,
Okay, for all,
sorry,
huh?
we read 11th.
So we're on 12 then, right? Okay. So if you have the Gita and you want to follow along, um, we have Jenya's with us, Bharat Nali from Puerto Rico, welcome. Madan Mohan, Eleonora from Argentina, and me from here in Boca Raton, in the mouth of the rat, here in Boca Raton, Florida. Um, so we're going to chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, text 12. And this chapter is entitled The Perfection of Renunciation. For one who has not renounced the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, and that's really referring to karma, because the fruits of our action, the results of our action, is our reactions. So desirable reactions, undesirable reactions, and reactions that are mixed, Krishna says. And for one is not renounced the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. And that gets back to what we discussed in previous chapters of karma, vikarma, and akarma. So, karma meaning more or less pious actions and actions that reap a pious reward or pious reaction. And that is indicated by um, wealth, being born into wealth, being born into a situation where you can accrue knowledge, how you look physically, physical beauty or being handsome or beautiful. All of these coming from an aristocratic birth, all of these are kind of general categories which are pious reactions. And then impious reactions would be called vikarma. So here Krishna is just using different language, desirable reactions, undesirable reactions, and mixed. So vikarma would be um, bad reactions, like not being beautiful, being either disfigured or not being particularly handsome or beautiful, not having an opportunity for intellectual development, coming from a family that is considered, not having any kind of culture. Or if they do, the culture is a tamasic culture, where things that are done, things that are acceptable in one culture would be considered from sattvic culture would be considered tamasic. Like, for instance, I've often heard, uh, I believe it was definitely an Asian country, I don't want to say which one, but that they have a delicacy that's really considered a delicacy. When you use the word delicacy, it's something that's relishable and tasty and all that. And what they would do is in the middle of the village, they would have a huge pot, and on the bottom of the pot would be like a spigot. And during the course of time, a week, a month, whatever, they would throw all the dead animals into that pot. And of course, what happens, the animals rot, and then there's an ooze. And the ooze comes out of the spigot when you open the spigot, and a person takes a little cup and takes that ooze and drinks it. And it's considered a relishable delicacy. So that would be indicative of a culture, because culture means how you dress, the foods that you eat, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be indicative of a tamasic culture as opposed to a sattvic culture. And a sattvic culture would be closer to a vegetarian diet. Rajasic culture would be, foods that are hot, spicy, and have the potential to cause distress, etc. So, in our culture, the Tamasic culture, or Rajasic culture, or Sattvic culture, things would appear differently. So, desirable, good karma, undesirable bad karma. And then from the akarmic perspective is what is being said here, at the last sentence. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. So that gets to the point that Krishna is making about renunciation. He is describing renunciation not so much as an order, a station like sannyas, although sannyas is indicative of the renounced order, but nishkama karma yoga, one who acts and who acts with a kind of detachment. So they're not acting just to self-centeredly enjoy the fruits of their action, but they're acting out of duty, and the fruits of their action are meant as an offering to the Supreme. So that would be, a person who is also considered renounced. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the description that Rupa Goswami gives of renunciation, he says renunciation is not just giving up something, but renunciation is being free from the desire to possess. So a person can be a nishkama karma yogi, be a householder, means has a wife, has a partner, has children, does work, etc. But their life is jagnarta karmano nyatra, that the action that they do is a sacrifice which is offered to the Supreme. And that kind of action is considered liberating, moksha. Whereas lokoyam karma bandhana means action, self-centered action, and so there is reaction to that. When the action is not self-centered but is uh, done as an offering to the Supreme, then um, that is considered an action which is free. I'm just noticing my computer is getting low on battery. So let me plug this in so we don't lose each other. Okay, there we go. Saved by the notification. Okay, so is that clear to everyone? How Krishna is really defining renunciation so that we know how it's applicable to us. Otherwise, as family people, we would say, oh, renunciation has no meaning to me, has no it's not related to me and my life at all. But Krishna is saying, no, that's not true. And that's the whole dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna in the beginning. Arjuna wants to renounce his duty, his dharma, his obligation. And Krishna says, no, you just do nishkama karma yoga. You act, but you're not attached to the results. And even your action as a warrior, Arjuna, can be offered to me and then be free from karmic reaction. So it's really the Bhagavad Gita is also called the Gita Upanishad because Krishna draws a lot from Upanishadic knowledge. And one of the things that Krishna is emphasizing in the Gita, which is not emphasized so much in the Upanishads. Upanishads more lean towards giving up action because action is the cause of reaction. So therefore, going to the mountains, taking sannyas is more the way of renunciation, according to the Jnani yogis or those that are followers of the Upanishads. But the Gita, Krishna is emphasizing in the Gita is everyone can be a renunciate and still be in a position of maintaining their duty, their obligations, their responsibilities. So that was quite revolutionary for its time. You can imagine when Krishna spoke these words, and it's particularly revolutionary now because it's a universal principle. It's universally applied to all of us, no matter what country, culture that we come from. That these principles of nishkama karma yoga, meaning that you do your duty in life, but you learn the process of not being attached to the enjoyment of results. Text 13, O mighty armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. So here in Krishna's citing Vedanta, and now he's beginning with his analysis of activity by discussing the 5 causes of action. So Krishna lists 5 specific causes of action. The most important, of course, of the 5 causes, and we'll go over them, being supersoul. Supersoul also considers, later on he says 4 causes of action, and then there's the super cause, and that is supersoul, Paramatma. And Paramatma is sanctioning. We have free will, but ultimately Paramatma, super soul within the core of our heart, divinity within the core of our heart, is sanctioning our activity. So Krishna is now offering this analysis to help us become detached from seeing ourselves as the doers of all and thereby becoming bound. Krishna will carry his analysis further. Krishna is going to carry his analysis further to the perfection of jnana, knowledge of the super soul. So text 14 reads as follows: the place of action, the body, the performer, the soul, the various senses, your sense of sight, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch, etc. The senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super cause of action, the super soul. These are the five factors of action. So then Krishna describes them each. He says, Adishtanam is the place of action. So for that understanding, the place of action is our body. That's where individually action takes place. So Krishna lists that as part of the five causes of action, place of action, um, or that which is held up by the skeleton. Nice comment there. The karta, the performer, is ultimately means the soul. So the soul, this is perfectly aligned with the earlier statements in the second chapter of Prakriti and Purusha. And in the seventh chapter, Krishna is also discussing Prakriti and Purusha. So the performer, the ultimately is the soul in material consciousness. So the soul within the body, that is one of the causes of action. The body is more like to facilitate the desires of the soul. So it's considered a cause of action. And when in material consciousness, we're acting through the false ego. Remember, chitta, according to Patanjali, refers to kind of the overarching mind, the overarch principle mind, which contains the mind, the intellect, and the ego. So the karanam are, or instruments, are the parts of the body, the senses. The chesta is the overall endeavor of the senses. So when we are making an endeavor to come in contact or interact with the objects of the senses through our senses, that's considered chesta, or that is considered the the endeavor that we make to do that. And then Daivam is the super soul, the ultimate controller over all the other factors. That is what is the Paramatma, or the super soul, the Lord of all within the material world. So those are the five causes of action as Krishna describes in that 14th verse. We'll move on to 15. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these five factors. So right or wrong action are the result of these five factors and how they're implemented. In other words, otherwise, when you use your senses, how do you use them? For what purpose do you use them? So this gives us an idea. Whatever right or wrong action, it's basically how you determine to use them. That is what Krishna is referring here. Krishna categorizes action in this way into three: that performed with body, mind, or words. Action in all three categories can be performed either according to injunctions by the sacred text or against them. In either case, however, it is the super soul who ultimately sanctions all action. So the categories Krishna is says here that performed with the body, mind, or words. Those are the three categories that he's referring to in text 15, right or wrong. Text 16, therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. So that is like a nutshell definition of being influenced by tamagun. Because what is a nutshell definition of tamagun? Cannot see things as they are, but rather see things as we are. So if we're covered by tamagun, we're going to see everything from a tamasic or mode of ignorance perspective, which means I can't see God, there is no God. As if you can see everything, as if we can see everything, right? We believe in things that we can't see. We believe in things that are on another other side of a wall or on the other side of the earth. In Australia, we believe the kangaroos are there, or that so many different things are there. So we can't see things because of distance. We can't see things because of obstruction. We can't see things because they are amongst other things that look like it. For instance, a mustard seed and a bag of mustard seeds. How do you identify? So there's many factors that bring something out of our range, but yet we still accept them as existing. So here, Krishna is saying these three categories, and one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factors, is not very intelligent. By my power, I have done it. If you remember, I believe it was it's either the 16th or I think the 16th chapter when it's describing the Sura and Asura, or the saintly and the demoniac. And one of the definitions of demoniac are those that are influenced by Raja and Tamagun, or passion and ignorance, is exactly this. By my power, I have done it, and therefore I am entitled to the results of my action, because it is by my power that I do it, my intelligence, my strength, whatever it may be, whatever category of action it may be, either through the senses, mind, speech, intelligence, etc. We think that we're the only doer. That is, according to Krishna, that's not very intelligent. And that mentality, being in that mindset as a result of the influence of tamagun and rajagun, or passion and ignorance, keeps us bound to action and reaction, the law of karma. Keeps us bound in this world. Loko yam karma bandhana. Those actions, those sacrifices that we perform that are not connected or directed to the supreme, is that is binding. It keeps us bound to the material world. So only I have done it. This is really the statement of the ego. Ego sees itself as the doer. What's that verse in the third chapter? Ahankara vimudhatma kartarham iti manyate. So according to my false ego, I think that I am the doer. Text 17. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. So again, it's a very radical it's a very radical example that Krishna is giving. And I think um, that Arjuna, being a warrior right before battle, is done purposely by Krishna to show, to demonstrate that when if you have a duty and being a warrior, being a protectorate of the innocent, that's what you do. You protect the innocent and you make sure that the innocent are not exploited. And Prabhupada, he uses the word in Sanskrit, I think it's prajna, and that means citizens. And Prabhupada said, for a Kshatriya, it does not mean just human citizens. It means all citizens, animals and human beings alike. And then there's the story in the Bhagavatam with King Parikshit. Uh, being a dutiful Kshatriya and king, he would tour his kingdom to make sure that everything was in order, that everything was, there was no exploitation going on. And he came upon the personification of Kali, who was also dressed up in kingly garb. And he was beating a cow. And as soon as Maharaj Parikshit saw this, he drew his sword and he approached the personification of Kali and he was going to kill him. And because he was a fierce warrior, of course, the personification of Kali immediately surrendered, bowed down, and please have mercy on me, please have mercy on me. And Maharaj Parikshit said, why? You are beating, mistreating one of the citizens of my kingdom. You deserve to die. And Kali said, oh, I'm sorry, I will not do it again. Just give me, a place to go. And because Maharaj Parikshit said, there is no place for you in this kingdom, because this kingdom is meant for all of my citizens. One of the characteristics of this kingdom is to feel protected. And because you are exploiting and harming one of the citizens of my community, this cow, you deserve to be punished. So eventually, Maharaj Parikshit was such a great noble soul that he he told Kali he had to go to a place, that was not a part of his kingdom, which he did, and he gave him the right to collect gold. And that hoarding of gold, Prabhupada says, the hoarding of gold produces all the other sinful acts. So that's why we see, um, that wherever there's the sinful actions that are going on, it's because there is a practice of hoarding of gold. So Arjuna was in an instance like that also. Another example of the protected kingdom. This Brahmin, and listen to this, to the degree of protection that leadership is supposed to provide, and then we'll see how far off our world leadership is. There was a Brahmin, and this Brahmin's wife gave birth to a child. So the child, when the Brahmin turned around, the child disappeared. And the Brahmin was looking, where is my child? Where is my child? And this was radical, that this something like this would happen, kidnapping or killing of a child, that was like the epitome, the personalities or the what should be protected. Children should be protected. The old should be protected. The Brahmins should be protected. Mothers, mothers, and there's 5 children, the elderly, Brahmins, 3 for sure, women, and the guru, I believe. All of these should be protected. And so when this occurred, the Brahmin was mortified, and he went to the king, and he was complaining, and he said, how is this? You must be very sinful as a king, because my family is not protected. And he was very upset. So Arjuna happened to be there, and Arjuna said, I will go and I will make sure that your family is protected. I will stand guard at your house. So when your wife is pregnant again, and she's about to give birth, notify me, I will come. So that's what happened. The Brahmin's wife got pregnant, and at the time nearing the birth, Arjuna was notified by the Brahmin. Arjuna went to the house and he stood guard. So when the wife gave birth, again it happened. Again the baby disappeared. And the Brahmin came out screaming, why aren't you protecting us? What is wrong with the Kshatriyas? That must mean they're sinful, that we can't even be protected in our own home. Arjuna was mortified. How is this happening? So he said, I promise you, I will protect you. So it happened for the 3rd time. And this time, Arjuna followed. The baby was being drawn up into the sky, and Arjuna was following, and Krishna was with him. And Krishna and Arjuna were following the baby. The baby was just being drawn through the air, up and out of the universe. And eventually, the child came to Mahavishnu, who was lying in the ocean of milk, or the causal ocean. And the child came to Mahavishnu. And because Arjuna is a very powerful individual and he's with Krishna, they were able to follow to Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu folded his hands. He said, excuse me. He said, I've arranged all this because I wanted the darshan of Krishna. I'm sorry to put you into anxiety, but I wanted the darshan of Krishna. So I have arranged this just to get Krishna here before me. But you see, the point I'm making is how the king, the Kshatriya, is to protect society. So when we think of the opening chapter of Bhagavad Gita and what Arjuna was being called upon to do, it's very serious. It's taken very seriously. Nowadays, of course, with leadership, our country's leadership on all levels and all countries, they do not have those qualities where they feel that every citizen has to be protected. Right now, all you have is division. Why? Divide and conquer. If you divide the population, then you can rule them a lot easier than if they were unified. So all of these ploys by leadership, you can understand leadership is wrong. Leadership is improper if it's dividing the country, if it's dividing the population. That this aspect of society, these immigrants coming into our country, they're wrong. They should be, forcibly, even though it says on the Statue of Liberty, bring me your homeless, your poor, your oppressed, bring them to my shores. So people say, oh no, that doesn't mean this. That what we're talking about is a conspiracy. There's a big conspiracy to invade the United States. I heard one person tell me, he said, yeah, it's a conspiracy because you notice all the Chinese that are coming through the southern border, they're all male military age. And I said, really? Male military age. So that means military age means like 18 to 40. Is that what you're saying? And they're saying, yes, yes. And I said, did you know historically, from Asia. If you look when the vast uh, uh, migration of Indian immigrants came to this country in the 60s and 70s, what was that comprised of, that immigration swell? It was mostly young men. Why? Number one, to bring a whole family from Asia is very expensive. And number two, to maintain a family in the United States right from the get-go is very expensive. So it makes sense that a man would come, a working man, an able-bodied working man would come first before his family, because in China and in India, you have a very strong family unit. So for the husband to leave the wife with the mother or the mother-in-law, that, you know, that was acceptable behavior. It's acceptable to do that, especially if the man is going to a foreign country for the betterment of his family. So it only makes sense if you look historically, Asians from India, that most of them who first came were men, and then they brought their families later. So Chinese, Japanese, Korean, you'll see the same kind of pattern. And that's because it's expensive. It's difficult to maneuver in the United States without money, but it's easy for a man. A man can live, share an apartment with five, six, seven other men. Not a problem, especially if you're a little austere. But when you have children and a wife, it's a lot harder to do. So, you know, we have a tendency to be extremely naive when it comes to leadership. And therefore, um, Krishna is very, very specific about leadership, both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Bhagavatam. There are many examples of leadership. And that kind of leadership comes from strong Kshatriyas, warriors who are also saintly personalities. So they had the combination of strength to give protection and saintliness to be also compassionate in their attitude towards citizenry. So, text 18, knowledge. The object of knowledge and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. So let's repeat that. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. So here, let's look at this way. Krishna here is using two words, jnana and gyeya, knowledge and the object of knowledge. Two of the six topics in chapter 13 that he talks about. This again indicates that chapter 18 is a summary of the Gita, because Krishna here is refreshing our memory about action, etc. So by elaborating on the motives and the constituents of action, that which comprises action, Krishna in text 18 finishes his summary of jnana. In pursuing that topic, Krishna will again describe the effects of the modes of nature, as he did in chapter 14 and 17. So Krishna three times gives us clear understanding of gunas. Chapter 14, if you remember, chapter 17, and now again, Krishna is doing. So that's the importance of understanding the knowledge of the gunas. Krishna says, I believe it's in chapter 14, just by understanding the workings of the material nature, one can become liberated. So that's why there's so much emphasis on it. And I would say to you, students of the Gita, to really have it down. What are the gunas? What are they made of? And how do they affect us? And all of those things in relationship to the gunas is a very, very important topic to understand. And by doing so, by making that effort to understand it, it gives clarity. Knowledge is revelatory. I was outside yesterday. I don't know if, who here. Oh, Madan has been to my house, and Bharat and Shenya, they've all been to my house. In the backyard, I have an abundance of trees and foliage. And of course, trees, palm trees, banana trees, planaria, all these different types of palm trees. They completely encircle my backyard, and some of them are 30, 40 feet high. So nobody can see into my backyard. I have privacy. But when you look at it, give it a cursory view, all you see is greenery. But if you take a closer look, in that greenery are birds, iguanas, and other species, squirrels. But just doing a cursory view, you just see the foliage. Get closer, get more into the detail, sharpen your eyes, and you see more than just leaves. And you see within the leaves the inhabitants of the leaves. So that's what knowledge will do for us in terms of our interacting with the modes of material nature in this material world. It gives us a perspective that's clear. It's a clear perspective. And is indicative of sattva gun, clarity of perspective. And the inability to see is indicative of tamagun. And simply not having the desire to see, rajagun. The desire is more what I want to see. I want to see as I am rather than as it is. So what is seen is reflection of internal, what's going on with me. If if I'm shy and low self-esteem, then we see the world as comprised of boogeymen, right? People who are gonna harm us. If we see the world as people are weak, then we'll become exploiters. We'll see that by my exploitation of the weak, I can profit. So this knowledge means we take a deep look at something, at the situation, our life, our interaction with other individuals, the workings of the gunas on us, and which are causing the varying perspectives. All of these things are very, very important. Okay. Text 19. According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge: action and performer of action. Now hear of them from me, Krishna says. That knowledge, this is text 20, by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. Okay, so what's knowledge in the mode of goodness? One undivided spiritual nature, that all life is Brahman. All life is Brahman. Individual Brahman, as Krishna says, na tvayevaham jatuna sam natvang name jananipa. Individuality he talks about, but their constitution, what the soul is made of, is one. Every soul is made up of the same component, Brahman, Satchit Ananda. Brahman is Satchit Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So one who can see that has the pinnacle of compassion. Why? Even the cutting of a tree unnecessarily, one reacts to that because he sees this tree is also a living entity. This tree also has a soul, and that soul is also constitutionally of Brahman and eternal, eternal by it, individually eternal by its nature. So even the wrongful cutting of a tree and any other harm to life, one can see that with that vision. That kind of clarity of perspective is described knowledge in the mode of goodness. 21. The knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion, thinking that the body is the living entity. And if you have a female body, you're different than the male body, and different than the cat body, different than the dog body, etc. Sees, distinction in that way. And therefore you can relegate one life form to like subspecies, and you can even justify killing it, like killing animals, for instance. They don't have a soul, says some major religions. That animals and even certain types of humans, historically, that has been said. So we understand that that is knowledge that is influenced by Rajagun. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all. That's one's totality of one's existence here on this earth planet. That my work is what I'm doing is the all in all of my existence. Without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in tamagun, or the mode of darkness. Now Krishna gives the knowledge that's influenced by the various modes and what it looks like. Text 23, he starts in action influenced by the modes. Gunas. That action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire or for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. So Krishna has already spoken about action to be dutifully performed is indicative of the mode of goodness. So here he's reiterating that point. Regulation is indicative because regulation requires what? Control of the mind in order to be regulated. For example, to get up every morning at the same time, to eat your meals at the same time. You have to be beyond whimsical. I'll get up when I feel like, I'll eat whenever no, a person knows not only from the yogic perspective, from the Ayurvedic perspective. Incorporating regulation into your life causes peace of mind, healthy body. And what is Krishna saying here? That regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred for it, and without desire. This is indicative of the mode of goodness. So action which is dutifully performed with regulation, it's performed without becoming too bent out of shape, elated, with happiness, or too depressed out of thing that is not desirable, action which is and reaction which is not desirable. That kind of equanimity Krishna describes in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as being yoga. if you can maintain that kind of equanimity, that kind of stability in life, no matter what is going on, that you can gather yourself. That kind of action is described as mode of goodness. 24, but action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires. So it means self-centered, whatever I want, whatever my desire. My heart is the seat of my desires. And if my desires are only for gratification of my senses, that is indicative of action performed in Rajagun or in the mode of passion. And also to gratify the senses from a sense of false ego, that action is called the mode of passion. And 25, I guess we'll stop here. That action performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunctions, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Ugra karma. Ugra karma means action which is destructive, self-destructive and destructive to humanity. Ugra karma. So any action, like you look at the destruction of the rainforests, right? Without consideration of what it's doing to the planet, how it's dislocating animals and human beings alike, how it's affecting the climate. That total disregard means that someone who is either the cause of it being done or the actual workers who are doing it, that means that they're influenced, their action is influenced by tamagun. So we will stop here. If anyone has any question or comment, kind of deep. We're getting, refresher course in the entirety of the Bhagavad Gita in this 18th chapter. So if you have any questions or comments or realizations or observations, please feel free to.
I do not see what is told in, I don't remember, I think it was 12, that according to your karma, you will be born in a better family or in a less intellectual if you're not, if your karma is not that good. I don't see that. Actually, what I see more is that sometimes it's said that children come to teach their parents.
Yes.
And that has a point to me, meaning I see that parents that are not really, the best persons you can look at, the kids are better, far better. So this doesn't agree with 12.
12 or 11?
Or 11, 12 or 11. I don't remember.
Yeah, 11 and 12. So what you're saying is, to you, it doesn't make sense that reactions, positive reactions or good karmic reactions in those categories of wealth, beauty, facility for knowledge, nobility of birth, you say that doesn't seem to be, because you say that children, if I'm hearing you correctly or understanding correct, for instance, children in any family can serve as the teacher, can be the source of profound lessons. Yeah, that's all true. But objectively, when someone is born into a rich family and doesn't have to struggle, for money, that can be, I mean, that placement is indicative of good karma, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that person will continue along those lines. In fact, that's why Krishna says that Hari means one who takes away. One of the
Ari.
names of Krishna, Hari,
Yeah.
Hari, one who
Yeah.
takes away. So they Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a statement that when things are taken from you in life, whether it's money or partner or whatever the case may be, that that is actually a sign of God's favor because you can be born in a good karma situation in one of those categories, but you can become deluded by it and perform actions that will bring the opposite result. So you're placed in that situation, but it does not necessarily, as you're observing, mean that it is going to be beneficial to you in the long run. A person who has money and squanders it on all kinds of sense gratification, is that beneficial in the long run? Well, the answer to that is in the Bhagavatam says that if you become eventually you must become a kinchana gocharam. And the kinchana gocharam means materially disgusted. And some people spend their whole life desiring what the wealthy have, while the wealthy, have it all, but don't find any pleasure in it.
And so many are so spoiled because that's a usual uh, picture to see.
Right. Right. Yep. So that's noted that but that's my understanding of
Mm.
how it just puts you in that situation, but doesn't necessarily dictate whether you'll become more rich or
Or
uh,
more knowledgeable or
more
whatever.
knowledgeable or spiritual or any of that.
No.
So in that case, that's why Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says one who's being favored by the Lord has things taken away. Because in that position, we feel helpless and we cry out to God.
In which
In that
position?
in the position of having things taken away, not
Ah,
having the money, not
ah,
having the beauty, not having those things
yeah,
that you feel like, hey, what do I have? So then there's the tendency, the willingness to call out,
for
help
God.
me.
True,
Yes,
true,
exactly.
true.
Very good, Eleanor. Thank you for that observation. Anyone else would like to share observation or whatever, or have any question in what's being said? If not, then I hope you all have a wonderful week, a healthy, happy, and holy week. You are welcome. My respects to you, Zhenya. Um, thank you so much for your association this evening. We'll see each other next week, which will be March. Next week, next Wednesday is what? March what? But we'll
6,
be, huh?
6
March 6th. That's the
already.
birthday of my older son, March 6th. So, okay. So we'll see you then. Have a happy, healthy, holy week. And some of you I will see over the weekend, I hope. And yeah, because we're doing a lot of things this weekend. There's Harinam this weekend. I'm giving a lecture at Gorangi Brindavaneshwari's house on Saturday in, I think she lives in Hallandale. That will be at 4:30. And so that for those of you who are around, please either go to the Harinam in Boca or you can come to the class and kirtan.
Thank
Yes,
you
I'll
very
see you there. I know Shenya said she'll be there, so I'll see you there.
much. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Bharat Haribo, Jad Bharat Haribo. Good
Hare
to
Krishna.
see you, Jad. Hare
Haribo.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. All glories to